Hey everyone, this is Michael from michaeldrewmusic.com, and today I would like to discuss the octave. What is an octave? How do we define it? How are we to think of it? And most importantly, how can we use the octave to our advantage when we are actually making music? That's what we're talking about today. Let's pop on over to the keyboard and break this down. Okay, so before we can get into the octave, I would like to start by reviewing the musical alphabet. Now, we've got the keyboard here. Let me say this from the beginning, that if you're watching this video and if you are a guitar player or if you're a singer, if you do something other than piano, I really believe having a basic understanding of piano is so beneficial for every musician. So even if you're not a piano player, I would encourage you, know how the piano works. I think the piano gives us the best visual for understanding music theory. So let's check it out. The musical alphabet, it has 7 letter names. A through G, okay? So A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Let's ignore the black keys for a moment and let's just look at the white keys. The white keys in music are called the naturals. The naturals are the letter names. Same thing. Okay, so the naturals are the musical alphabet, A through G. So the piano starts on A. Okay, the first note is A, just like the alphabet. And we're going to go in order. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now in music, after G, we don't go to H, right? We're going to go back to A. Okay, and then we're going to keep going. B, C, D, E, F, G. Starts over again. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and so on. Now every time that one of those notes starts over, that is an octave. So an octave would be 2 different notes with the same letter name. Like this is the note D right here. If we go to the next D up, you can see the 2 black keys. It's in between the 2 black keys. There's the D. Go up, and there's the next D. Okay, so that would be an octave. 2 different notes with the same letter name. Now you can play octaves of the black keys as well, of course, but remember that they don't have their own letter name. So if I play this note, which is F, and I play its octave, okay, there are octave Fs. If I take each of those up a half step, we don't call that G because again, it's not a white key, it's a black key, so we would call that F sharp is the name for that. Those would be octave F sharps there. And if I take this note B, and I play its octave, okay, there are octave Bs. If I take those down to the black key, now we've got B flats. Flat is what you call it when we go down to the black key. So there will be octave B flats right there. And now let's take a look at how would we understand the octave? How should we think of the octave? How should we best wrap our head around what's going on here? I want to listen. When you listen to octaves, you can hear that the 2 notes, they match in a certain way. They lock together in a certain way. Give that a listen. Okay, now listen to different notes together. And there's the octave again. Do you hear how when you hear different notes, if you listen to that, you can hear that there's the notes are rubbing together in a different way. They're interacting in a different way. But once you hit that octave, it's almost like it's one note. It's almost like it's locking in and it's just one single note there for the octave. So here's a question. Are the 2 notes in an octave, are they the same or are they different? Now, my first reaction would be to say, well, they're different because I'm playing 2 different notes, right? I'm playing C and C, so clearly those are different notes. But I want us to think about this a little bit deeper here. My best analogy for how to think of an octave would be that I want you to think of it as different shades of the same color. Okay, so take the note C. Let's say that C is blue. And the lowest C on the piano down here, there is our deepest shade of blue, right there, our darkest blue. Okay, and then we go up to the next C, its octave, and now it's a little bit lighter. And it's still blue, but it's a little bit lighter. lighter, lighter, and so on. So think about that. Think about different shades of blue. Are they the same or are they different? Well, in a sense, they are the same because they're all blue. It's all the same color. It's not red, it's not yellow, it's blue. But in a sense, they're different because they're different kinds of blue. And that's how I want you to think about the octave. I want you to think about the octave like that. Like in a sense, it's the same, but in a sense, it's different, right? It's the same because it's all C's, right? Everyone is a C. So they're all in that category of C. They're all in that family of C, but they're different kinds of C. So I hope that's a helpful way to think of it, and that's how I like to think of the octave when I'm making music. Finally, I would like to look at the 3 most common and practical applications of the octave in real music. From my own experience, my own perspective, there are more ways to use the octave. There's more that could be said about it, but just from my own take on it, these are the 3 things that I think I use the most, that I've heard the most in other people's music as well. Okay, so the first thing that I will say is that octaves work great to add excitement to a melody. Okay, now what I'm talking about here is I'm not talking about playing the notes at the same time, like we've been doing. I'm talking about playing a melody in different octaves. Okay, so let's say I have a test melody here. Give this a listen. Okay, there it is. Now, what if I do this? Okay, so what did I do there? In the middle of the melody, I jumped up an octave, right? I took it up an octave and I played the second half of the melody an octave higher. This is something that you hear good singers do all the time, right? Where they'll be singing in a lower register, maybe in the verse of the song or in a quieter part of the song, and then a big moment happens and they jump up an octave, they're an octave higher now. That is really effective. When you play or sing in a higher register, when you're using the higher octaves, those notes are going to cut through the mix more. They're going to be more noticeable. They're going to stand out from the other instruments more. So playing in higher octaves is great when you really want to draw the attention to the melody. Maybe it's a solo, maybe it's a guitar solo or a piano solo. Maybe it's, a powerful chorus in a pop song for a vocal. But just moving octaves with a melody can be really, really helpful. Okay, secondly, octaves can be used to strengthen a melody. So now I am talking about playing the 2 notes at the same time. So let's go back to that example of that melody I was just playing. Okay, now what if I did this? Right? So it's the same melody, but it's beefier now. It's still a melody, right? I'm still playing, 2 E's, 2 D's, 2 C's, so I'm not harmonizing. Harmony's great. I love harmony, but sometimes we don't want a harmony. Sometimes we still just want a melody, but we want to strengthen that melody. The octave is a great way to do that. It's really the only way to do that and keep it just a melody. That is a neat trick. Again, vocally, it works great. My wife and I do this all the time where we will sing in octaves. I'll sing the lower octave. She'll sing the higher octave. Ed Sheeran is someone who does that all the time on his recordings. Many great singers do that. It's used a lot on guitar. It's used a lot on piano. If you've got a melody and you want to beef it up, you want to make it thicker sounding, playing it in octaves is really useful. The last thing that I'll say about the octave is that it works great in the bass. Now, we have to be careful in music with the low frequencies. When we get down here to the low notes, there are a lot of things that could sound really bad. So if I play a C chord right here, that's a nice sound. That sounds really good. Okay, but if I do the same thing down here, that does not sound great. And that's because, the waveforms, they're much wider down there. So lower notes, just if they're too close together, they do not interact well. It sounds muddy. It's hard to differentiate between the different notes in the chord there. That is just not a sound that we want. But octaves are different. Octaves are different because, again, two different notes with the same letter name, right? So you're not playing different letters. You're not playing different colors. You can think of it that way. You're playing the same color, so they're going to match. They're going to interact well together. And then they're also more spread out, so they're not super close together. So if I play octave Cs down here, that's a great sound. C, E, G, not so much. But octave Cs, that is a really great sound. So this is something that is a go-to for me on piano. It would be octaves in the left hand. That's a great sound in the left hand. So that could be a piano thing. That could be maybe you've got a bass guitarist and a bass synthesizer that are both playing the root note of the chord, and maybe they play in octaves. Maybe you have a guitar and a bass play in octaves. Anytime you're in the bass there, you've got to be careful. You can't play notes that are too close together. You can really muddy up your mix if you're not careful with the bass, but the octave is always safe, and it always sounds good when we're playing down low. Thank you all so much for taking the time to check out this video on the octave. If you have any follow-up questions about the octave, please feel free to leave me a comment down below. I would also love to hear if you have other ways that you use the octave that maybe I didn't mention. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. And if you found this video to be helpful, please consider subscribing to the channel and clicking the thumbs up button down below. Thank you all again, and have a wonderful time making music.